Welcome back, everybody. It's your time to ed up on the Ed Up Experience podcast, where we make education your business. I am excited to have with me an amazing guest today. I've been trying to get her this whole conference. I've been hearing about her here at WISE, right? What is WISE? It's the World Innovation Summit for Education. We're here live in Doha, Qatar. And I say, who is this Naza lady everybody's been talking about? How do I get her on the podcast? And so I found Haley, her comms person. And I said, Haley, I got to get Naza. And she said,
access denied.
I was like,
Access denied.
I was like, well, can I please have her on the podcast?
Access denied.
And I just didn't know what to do at this point. And I'm going, Elvin. I said, Elvin, you're the producer. Can you get with Haley? And even Elvin came back.
Access denied.
Anyway, I think the WISE team got involved, and finally,
access granted.
So here she is, ladies and gentlemen. Let me get the applause ready because she deserves one. Naza Alakija. She is CEO, founder, extraordinaire, philanthropist, Sage Foundation. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. Move that mic just a little tiny bit closer. Sage Foundation. So first of all, thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
I'm honored that you're here. Tell us what the Sage Foundation is and what do you guys do?
So we're a small organization that focuses on finding and funding grassroots organizations that are developing in 3 areas of work. That's women and girls empowerment, education, and climate change.
Okay. Girls and women empowerment, climate change, and what was the third one? Education.
Education.
All right. So how do you prioritize those three?
They're all it's intersectional, right? So all 3 of them kind of are interwoven. And what we've noticed is when one of them is out of whack, then nothing else is, you can't really progress in the way that you'd essentially like to and long term.
So what do you do from here? Okay, so you're here, you're at the Qatar Foundation. What are you doing here? Are you looking at organizations that are intersecting with education, or are you learning about what's happening? So tell me what your interests are for here at Qatar Foundation.
So one of the things that when I started my foundation, initially I was thinking about environmentalism only, because what I saw, I was living in Nigeria at the time, and one of the things that I saw was that a lot of the development gains were unraveling because of the climate crisis, right? These are the countries that are on the front line. So, how do I had to kind of stop and think again about what do we need to provide in order to kind of get ourselves out of this. And I noticed that a lot of children actually didn't know what was happening or what they could do to prevent, the situation from getting worse. So, we deployed ourselves. We went to different schools. We started talking about, climate education, and, we actually got a lot of great feedback, and we saw how engaged and encouraged the kids were. So we continued with that, and that's how education actually became a pillar in our foundation. And being here, just learning from that, it's interesting to see the direction which education is taking. And how do, in a world where everything's becoming more digital, how do we engage with creative education, and also in a post-pandemic era, how do we ensure that the kids that have been left behind, which are many,
Yeah.
I mean, there's 3.7 billion children in the world that don't have access to the internet. So what they did during the pandemic is beyond me.
Well, and the kids who had access to technology, or were in first world countries that maybe were in a lower economic background, the technology was so disrupted. You had people who had access to education not access it. So,
Right.
And then look at the kids in the world that don't have access to it. What is that? It just creates a lot of gaps, wealth
Absolutely.
gaps, socioeconomic gaps. And it sounds like you're trying to fill those gaps.
Right.
You're trying to level set. Education is a great equalizer, right? So as a pillar, it's admirable that would be one of your investment strategies, as it were. Okay, so give me an example. Can you give me an example of an organization that you've invested in? What did they do? You don't have to give names if you don't want to, but what did they do? Why did you select them? And what impact has this organization had? Just an example, anything that comes, maybe something that's really close to your heart and to your mission.
Sure. So one of the things that we focused on in July and August was these mobile libraries that we supported. It's an organization called Charmax. They're based in Kabul.
Wow.
And they convert old public buses into mobile libraries. So the children that really have no access to school, they get into those provinces, support them with psychosocial support, which is really, really important. I mean, think about a traumatic experience that you would go through.
Yeah.
Can you really get on with your day-to-day task after it? Not really. So, these children that are living in war zones, they need that psychosocial support. So that was another element that they were doing that we really appreciated.
That's actually a really good idea.
Isn't it?
I mean, I'm thinking about how crazy simple. I would have never thought of something like that, but how brilliant that is to bring a library bus to kids who can't access a library. Who comes up with this stuff?
The founder, she's a firecracker.
Oh
she's
my
quite
gosh.
amazing.
What an incredible idea.
Yeah.
So what's the impact? The kids get on the bus, they can access the books, they can and now have access to learning they wouldn't have had.
Exactly.
What do you walk away with from this, and why do you do what you do? I mean, why is this such a passion for you?
Yeah, I moved from Iran when I was 9 years old, and I was an immigrant in the UK, and life was hard. I didn't really have an easy childhood. I didn't grow up with a lot of privilege, and now that I'm in a place where I can do that, or I have a platform where I can do that, I want to provide people with the same opportunities.
How do you measure your impact? Because you must have some way to measure it to know whether your facilitation, as it were, is making the impact that you want.
So I'm actually a little bit reluctant to always look at impact, because I think
That's interesting.
Yeah, because there's a taboo with philanthropy, right? And how we should always be seeing results, and that's not necessarily the case. We're not always going to have positive results from the investment we're making in philanthropy, and that's okay, because we learn from that, as opposed to getting stuck in the same conventional methods of doing. And I think this is the trap that the larger organizations of the world are stuck in, because they have accountability to show the impact, to show without necessarily being able to say to the donor, hey, this wasn't successful, but we tried. Here's what we can do differently, and here's how it can be successful. But in terms of actually looking, speak to the communities, see what the people are saying. Are their livelihoods important? Are they improving? Are they, do they feel happier? These are more important for me than seeing actual tangible results.
So you're willing to let your facilitation, your investment fail sometimes, because it creates an infrastructure
Absolutely.
for success later.
Absolutely.
That's interesting. So how do you, I'm just really curious, because that's a really interesting stance versus what I understand, or at least in the United States, for example, the Gates Foundation, it's accountability. There's got to be some numbers. So for them to put more dollars behind something, they do a lot of work across the world, but sometimes you wonder, how do you get to that impact? There has to be some failure along the way, because It's not like these organizations are always equipped to succeed.
Absolutely.
Right? So is that part of how you look at an organization, is its potential to succeed versus that it's already succeeding?
Absolutely. I mean, of course, we take lessons from our projects that have succeeded,
Sure.
right? Or are we looking at, these are the pillars that they were focusing on holistically. These are the solutions they came up with. Okay, let's try and deploy something similar in a different context, speaking with the people on the ground, and how do we take that? How do we grow it? I don't think looking at it long term is as something that's consistently growing and linear is the way to look at aid at all.
Okay, so Sage Foundation, give me a list of countries where you've made impacts or made investments, just off the top of your head recently, or if you have the full list in your head, exhaust it, because I think that global piece that you're talking about is really important for our audience to understand what that impact is. So
Sure. So one of the places that a number of places that we've worked in include Northeast Nigeria, Rwanda.
I heard
Cote d'Ivoire,
Afghanistan. Somebody was telling me Afghanistan.
Yeah, I worked a lot in Afghanistan. It's a country that's, I'm Iranian, so when I go there, it almost feels like home. And we spent a lot of time there, and Yemen, and a lot of conflict zones, to be honest with you. So those are some of the countries that we've operated in, with many more, especially Africa.
That's pretty incredible. So sometimes, Naza, on my show here, I like to throw a little bit of a curveball question, something completely unrelated to what you're doing, or maybe not. So I'm going to ask you now. Are you ready?
I think so.
Okay.
Should I be scared?
No, you should not. Well, I don't know. It depends. Here we go. For no money, you're a philanthropist, so I can't get you. You have to invest in me. For no money for you. What's your entrance music? What's the song that plays when you walk on stage? What's the song that plays in a classroom? If something was going to introduce you, this song that is just all about you.
Oh, That's a really difficult question because my taste in music is quite wild.
Well, there we go.
But if I was to be a yeah, Stairway to Heaven, Led Zeppelin.
Wow, which you of course can't play in a guitar store,
No,
right? You know this, right? You can't play Stairway to Heaven in a guitar store. So let's have let's move from climate change to the education piece of this.
Mhm.
You're here at Wise.
Sure.
You're learning.
Mhm.
What are you learning? Are you learning areas of investment and philanthropy? Are you learning about leaders who are investing their time into change, and you're connecting? Is it networking for you? What's the point of you being here? What are you hoping to take away now that this conference is coming to an end?
I mean, a lot of it is inspiration, right? I was just on a panel with a lady who uses sports education in sports.
Girls with balls?
Girls with balls.
Yeah.
Eglin.
Oh yeah.
I'll tell you, she is a part. She's in the same hotel as Elvin and I, and she has talked very succinctly about her mission, and she is very unique.
She is.
Yeah.
She is. So
she's a firecracker.
She's a firecracker. So she, things like that, and you would never generally. Again, this is the power of coming together, right? You learn so much from each other. You get inspired, and you kind of change as time goes on, so you don't get stuck in the same pattern of doing the same things over and over again. So I think for me, the best part of the summit has just being inspired by so many amazing people here.
The piece that you're talking about, grassroots organizations,
Mm-hmm.
the most fascinating part of that is that they, to me, I'm guessing here, is that they might be hard to find.
Mm-hmm.
Like, are they hard to find? Do you have to go looking under rocks, so to speak, to say, wow, there's this one, company or group of people that are changing this in this one tiny area? And how do you find these grassroots organizations, or do they find you?
I think if you asked me that question 20 years ago, I would have told you it's very, very hard. But with the power of social media is something else, right? So a lot of these things we either connect with on social media, or they do reach out to us, through our website.
That's interesting. I do want to talk about Haley again just for a second here, because and I say this with all due respect to Haley, but she came here before you.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know this. And she said that I had to introduce you in a certain way. Yeah. And she said, when you introduce Naza, make sure you hit this button. And this is the one she told me to hit.
No.
And I was like, Haley, are you sure that is powerful enough for Naza, who's literally investing her time and money and dollars into these organizations? And I said, no, surely it has to be this. All right. I chose this for you. I just want you to know this. All right. Haley chose the other one.
No.
Anyway. I really appreciate you coming by. What do you want to say about the Sage Foundation? Open mic, anything you want to say. Of course, what I think makes this podcasting experience beautiful, especially in the EdUp experience, is that I don't structure things. And so here's the microphone. You know what? I'm not going to give you a prepared question. What do you want to say about the Sage Foundation for my audience, which is back in the States primarily, higher education, administrators, faculty, people that care, business and industry professionals all across Fortune 500 companies? What do you want to say about the Sage Foundation?
Well, I mean, we take quite a holistic and intersectional approach at the way we do philanthropy and aid, which, as I've mentioned, we do what we're looking for in the year ahead is to be able to expand in terms of mentorship. So not just through finance, but also providing platforms and tools for people to be able to reach out and learn, because it's not always about money, right? It's about giving people opportunities to learn. So, reach out to us if you're willing to bring people on board from different parts of the world to train and share ideas and, learn from them as well, then, hit us up.
Where do we find you? Where do we connect with Naza Alakija?
Well, if I go through all the list of
we want
socials.
to we can look up Sage Foundation online. Right. We'll look up Sage Foundation, but where do we find you? What's the best way to connect with you? Social media, Instagram,
LinkedIn, Twitter. I'm all over the place, so I'm sure it won't be that hard to locate me.
She is accessible, I know, because I have requested her to connect with her on LinkedIn. She has so far denied my request. Declined me. But she is pretty amazing, I will say. Ladies and gentlemen, Naza Alakija, founder at Sage Foundation. Naza.
Thank you. So nice to meet you.
Ladies and gentlemen, you just EdUp'd.